Have you ever felt stressed out, overwhelmed, anxious, just like you're constantly worried and feel like things are kind of out of control? Well, if so, I've got some good news for you because I remember feeling that way. And today I'm going to tell you the way that God worked in my life and the things that I've practically done that have helped me to overcome that and live a much more peaceful and enjoyable existence. Let's get into it. All right, thanks for joining me today on the Seeking Excellence YouTube channel. If you get value out of this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so that you can get more Seeking Excellence content in the future. All right, so today we're talking about how we can eliminate a lot of the stress and anxiety that just eats at us almost every day of our lives, depending on where you're at and who you are and how you're living your life. And so just a quick testimony of my own story, my own journey with this. When I was a kid, middle school, high school, I was stressed out all the time. I felt like the inconsistency in my personal life and my family life, my dad kind of being in and out from when I was a toddler because of work, and then later because of struggling within marriage for my parents, that I didn't have this consistency that I needed. I didn't have the structure. I didn't have the loving home. We weren't, a family of faith really, where we were practicing our faith, and we had kind of that bedrock, that foundation for us when things got difficult and times got rough. We didn't have that, and so I felt like I was constantly stressed and anxious. I'm talking to the point of feeling sick to go to school, feeling, sick in my stomach all the time, headaches, all these different things that were physically manifesting themselves as a part of my inward reality, the chaos that was within me. I was experiencing that in a really powerful and serious way, physically, spiritually, emotionally, everything. This led to me being very angry. I was very impatient with people. I was very mean to people. I was very judgmental. I was rude. I had a terrible temper. And I was getting to the point where I was realizing I don't want to live my life this way, right? This is very unpleasant. It's very unenjoyable. And I wanted to live a better life. And so I was really thinking to myself, like, okay, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to begin. And I had kind of two things. Obviously, for us as Catholics, we believe in faith and reason. And there's really both of those things and kind of subcategories or implementations, different practices, habits that come out of faith and reason that really helped me to change my life and get my life much more under control and to give me a much more peaceful and joyful experience of everyday living. So this really all started to change for me when I got to college. When I got to college, one of the first things I did was really implement a prayer life for the first time ever. I started to just go to the chapel every day. I didn't really know what I was doing or how to pray, but I would just go to the chapels because they were unlocked, and I would spend time in the chapel before the Blessed Sacrament, in the tabernacle, or exposed in adoration. And I would sit there and I would just pray. I would just talk to God and just kind of share the things that were on my heart. And this was really the beginning of this healing journey, of this process towards me not constantly feeling like there was a thunderstorm going on inside my mind and inside my heart. And one of the things that started to really reveal itself over time as I started to go deeper into personal growth and really striving to better myself while I was in college was I realized how much I was blaming other people for my mistakes, for my sins, for my life and the situations that I found myself in, the mistakes that I was making. I found it so easy to say, oh, it's because my father was this way, or because my siblings did this, or because my family, or whatever it might be, my teacher isn't treating me fairly. So that's why I don't have the grades that I want to have. Whatever the situation, whatever the topic, you name it. If my life wasn't the way that I want it to be, it was always somebody else's problem. It was always somebody else's fault. There was always somebody else to blame. And I came to realize that this was really a coping mechanism. This was really just a way of me offloading all the responsibility for my life. But the thing that really hit me one day was when I figured out and learned through reading or a talk or spiritual direction, whatever it was, that if I don't take responsibility for my current circumstances, I have no power to change my circumstances now or in the future. This is what you might kind of call a two-edged sword, right? When you think about changing your life. If you don't take responsibility for getting yourself to where you currently are, then you really have no control or power to get you out of that situation. If you do not get yourself there, then it's really hard to get yourself out. Now, there's times, obviously, where you don't want to blame yourself for every single thing that happens in your life. I think some people can get a little extreme and go overboard with this. But generally speaking, there's a lot you can do. There's a lot you could avoid. There is certain suffering from sins and sins of other people that we couldn't avoid. This is especially true if you're a kid. But still, even in our lives, right? I could get robbed tomorrow. And it doesn't necessarily, I think, make a lot of sense to take control and responsibility for me choosing to go arbitrarily down one street instead of going one block over, right? If I got robbed and beat up, or worse. And so there's limitations to this, right? But I think generally, especially when you kind of know for yourself when you're being unreasonable and you're blaming other people for things that no longer are affecting you. I had a lot of conversations with other kids in college like this that were blaming their absent father or their siblings or their teachers or whatever it is for their circumstances, for their grades, for their results, the outcomes they were creating in life. And I just had to coach them through this and try to teach them and lead by example through my own healing, my own journey to say, hey, we have to take responsibility for our lives now. At a certain point as an adult, you don't get to blame other people for you not knowing how to file your taxes, you not knowing how to budget. You hear that all the time, right? Why didn't they teach us this in high school? Why didn't you teach us this in middle school? I don't know, but they didn't. And now it's on you to learn it because it's your responsibility to file your taxes. And so if you're going to live well as an adult, even if nobody taught you how to be chaste, even if nobody taught you how to be physically fit, how to eat well, if nobody taught you how to pray, if nobody taught you how to evangelize, if nobody taught you how to manage your money, how to invest, yes, it's unfortunate. Yes, your parents should have taught you some of those things, if not all of those things, but they didn't, perhaps. And so now it's time for you to take control and for you to take ownership of your life. This is one of the three foundations. I call these things the foundations of excellence: is ownership, intentionality, and courage. And we need these three things if we're going to have any excellence in our lives, because you can't be somebody who goes around blaming other people, complaining about what everybody else is doing, trying to control all these things that are outside of your control while not controlling the things that actually are within your control and have any sort of excellence in your life or any sort of excellent outcomes in your life. So this all got much more concrete for me when I read for the first time in my life, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In that, Dr. Stephen Covey goes through what he calls the circle of influence and the circle of concern. There's another level of that I'm going to get to as well. But let's just start with those two to begin. The circle of concern is everything that concerns you. So this might be what's going on in Washington, D.C. and what's happening in politics. Maybe it's, to think of a recent example for us Catholics, Cardinal McElroy has become the Archbishop of Washington, D.C. Okay, that concerns me. It's something that stresses me out, something that I care about, something that pulls or moves my heartstrings. It affects and changes my mood to see, people pouring across the southern border, or to see all these different things that are happening in our world that are difficult to see, hard to accept, and maybe bother you, right? And you have this concern about them in some capacity. The next level down from that becomes a much smaller circle, is your circle of influence. So these are the things that you can actually have an impact on. I can have an impact on my local community. So it makes more sense. This is why we often talk about the church's teaching on subsidiarity, because it actually makes more sense for me to be more concerned about local politics, because I can actually influence and change those much more easily than I'm going to impact things at the federal level. So your circle of influence is this tinier thing, which is areas that you can actually influence. I can actually influence my team. Now, if I work at a major company, right? If I was working at Starbucks and I was a barista, I can impact maybe my store and the culture of my store, my coworkers, and maybe even my boss. But I can't influence Starbucks as a company, right? That's just outside of my influence. Now, as you grow and expand and get promotions and you just rise in your leadership in your community and in the world, and your impact gets greater, your influence is a little bit higher, right? Joe Rogan has a lot of influence. Some CEOs and big leaders in our nation, Donald Trump has a lot of influence, right? His circle of influence is quite large. But at the same time, there's always going to be things, no matter how big anybody gets, where you have things that concern you that are outside of your circle of influence. And so it's helpful to know what's in which circle. Now, I've seen in a lot of other personal development books or talking about a third circle, which is your circle of control. There's a difference between control and influence. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is what is actually within your control. And this is the thing that has taken me from super stressed, anxious, procrastinating, all these different things, blaming other people, to living a life of peace and of joy. The shift there for me was recognizing I have a circle of concern, I have a circle of influence, and trying to operate more in my circle of influence, thinking more about my circle of influence, reading more, caring more, praying more, all focusing in my attention, my energy going more to that circle of influence. What took me, I think, from good to great in certain areas of my life was actually going from that circle of influence to that circle of control, and really trying to emphasize and focus more and more on that. That's been an explosion and such a big help in my virtue, in my holiness, in my relationship with God, in my work, in my side hustles, in my finances, you name it. Going from the circle of influence to the circle of control and then kind of getting to yourself where you're in 80% in your circle of control for your concerns and what you allow to dictate your happiness and your peace and your joy. Then, maybe 15% in your circle of influence, and then 5% in the circle of concern. It's pretty hard to get totally out of the circle of concern and not let it have any control or impact on your living or experience of life, but you can really tamper it down. Most people are living totally, ass backwards in this regard. They're living where they're mostly focused in their circle of concern, neglecting or to dabbling in their circle of influence, and then just totally ignoring their actual circle of control and the things that they can control, they can really impact. And that's just a backwards way of living, which is why we have this mental health epidemic where people are depressed and anxious and having all these issues, is because people are allowing their lives to be dictated and the goodness of their lives, their experience of life, to be dictated and controlled by things that are outside of their control. And so I want to talk about 3 ways we can practically implement controlling the controllable in 2025. So in this year that we're in, how has this really helped me? I'll share kind of, some of my personal examples and just try to coach you and encourage you to really focus in these 3 areas on controlling the controllable. That's really my mantra, my theme for the year, because as I said, it was so impactful for me last year to really come back and say, okay, I need to surrender to God's will. There's just going to be things that happen this year in my life in general that I don't want to happen, that I don't enjoy, that I didn't see coming, that I'm not planning for. That's going to happen. That's life, right? And we just need to embrace that. Jesus says to embrace our cross every day and follow him. We don't get to always pick what our cross is. So it's going to be different things. But instead of just reacting to everything, how can we actually respond to things? And if my son throws up in the middle of the night, not just getting upset about it or getting in an argument with my wife because it's 3 a.m. and we're both tired, but just saying, okay, what's the best next thing I can do? The only thing I can ever do is the best next thing I can do. And if I can focus on taking the best next step in my life, then I'm going to end up 10 years from now in a much better place than if I'm just casually going through life, not focusing on the things that are within my realm of responsibility. And so 3 areas that you can really focus on controlling the controllables this year. Number 1, your relationships. So in your relationships, you can't control a lot. So one thing that I had to really learn the hard way throughout my life, and I'm still learning in so many ways, is that I can't control other people. Now, I'm somebody, and you might be like me, that you're very influential. I can make a big impact. I can talk some people into things, right? I work in sales, and so I've always been somebody who can influence and a natural born leader, and somebody who can really kind of get people on my side, right? I can build momentum in an idea, whether that's what we're going to do with our friends, what movie we're going to watch as a family, what book my Bible study is going to read next to the book of the Bible. I'm very good at just kind of getting people to like buy into my ideas and my thoughts, which is what makes me a decent podcaster and a decent speaker, because it's just something that I'm more naturally talented in and have worked to even hone and strengthen over the years. At the same time, that being said, I cannot actually control other people. I can't force other people to see my vision for our lives, for my family, for my career, for my goals that I have for myself. I can't force them to get on board with that. I can't control what my son does. My son is a toddler, and he just sometimes it's just nuts. He doesn't want to do what I want him to do. I used to get really frustrated and discouraged sometimes when I couldn't control and get other people to do what I wanted them to do, because I was so good at it. I was so used to it. Some of it, maybe I was spoiled. I know a lot of people point to say, oh, you're an only child, so of course you always had to get your way. And I think that everybody's like this to an extent. We all want everybody else to do what we want them to do. I think that's just a human nature. And I've seen a lot of people who have come from really big families who are very controlling and get very upset and very tempered when they don't get the things that they want. What I can tell you is that you will have more peace in your life immediately if you accept and just reflect on and pray through the idea that I cannot control other people. I have to give it up to God. I have to embrace suffering at times. And I have to, every time somebody does something I don't want them to do, I have to focus on what I can control and how I can mitigate negative behaviors, how I can manage the boundaries in my life, which I do have control over, or remove people from my life if they continue to assault those boundaries or violate them. Those are your options that you have. But really coming back to saying, okay, I can't actually control other people. I can control certain aspects of my relationships, like my boundaries, how much time and access I give to other people, how much influence in my life I let them have. And when you can focus on that, then you're going to be much more free to be peaceful and really to enter into healthy relationships. All right, the next area is in your finances. So this could be really applicable if you're somebody who's married. It could be really applicable if you're somebody who's not married as well. But when it comes to our money, we are very tempted, I think, sometimes to say that we have to do things that we don't have to do. I think a clear example of this is when you make a list of your needs and your wants. It's very tempting to make your wants your needs, right? To label your wants as your needs. And so, what I encourage you to do here is to stop trying to please other people. If you are somebody who's trying to stick to a budget this year and somebody wants to go out to dinner, or it's the holidays, or they want you to go on family vacation and you don't have the money for it, don't go. Control the things that you can control. You are not responsible for other people's happiness. This is something that's really important and kind of bleeds into the relationships piece. But I just have seen myself so many times where it's like friends want to do something, or somebody expects something of me, or they're asking me for things. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be generous. We should be radically generous in our lives. I'm not saying that you should be super controlling and secretive with your money with your spouse. By no means. But when it comes to your life and your money, you have to control the things that are within your control. And so this is a big shift that I had to have when we were finding our balance as a married couple with our finances. We come from very different financial backgrounds. Our experience of money is very different. Our outlook on money is very different, but we're striving to grow in unity. And I had to come back to this point, kind of from bullet point one of I can't control the other people in my life, but what can I focus on? How I can control things. I do get to dictate or determine whether we want to go to a cash budget. And so we didn't go full cash budget this year, but we did make some adjustments and some changes that I said, okay, we're not managing our spending well. Instead, here's what we're going to do. And we implemented a new system where we each had personal spending debit cards with which we could do whatever we wanted. But that was just a good example in my life of shifting from, okay, we keep overspending every month. Instead of getting mad and fighting and arguing about it, I just said, okay, here's a control that I can implement as something I can actually do. And obviously get my spouse on board with, not just be, a tyrant when it comes to our money, but saying, hey, what do you think about this idea? This way I don't have to hassle you. This way you can do whatever you want with your money and you don't have to ask me about it. We don't have to go over each month. You'll have a natural limit that'll help you to budget and think about the things that you want to buy. And we've been in a much better place, a much more peaceful place ever since then. And so when it comes to your money, think about the things that you can control. If you feel like you can't get ahead, what can you cut out of your life? You don't need to have Netflix. You don't need to have these other things. Stop comparing yourself to so many other people in the way that they're living, the cars that they drive, the vacations and trips as they go on, the subscriptions and things that they have. That's not you. Just be yourself. Do the things that you know are best for you. Focus on the things that you can control. There's a lot in the economy and things that could go wrong, that could go off. And so I'm always trying to focus on what are the things I actually have direct control and responsibility over, and how can I manage and steward those things well. Okay, and number 3 is your personal behavior. Obviously, all of these are kind of your personal behavior, but I want to kind of really hone in on a few things, especially your habits. For me, the number one thing that has changed in my life most recently is implementing getting up at 5 a.m. or 5:30 some days, but getting up earlier in the morning. When I've started to do that, I'm not kidding that it has radically changed my life in just 2 or 3 weeks of me starting to do this. When I get up early in the morning, I always make time to pray, to read. I've been going to the gym more often, planning my day more thoroughly, getting extra work done before everybody else is up, before the day really begins. And it has totally and radically changed my life. Seriously, it has been so impactful in what I have. And what I realized was a lot of last year I was blaming other people. I'd say, well, hey, if this person, who had helping me with videos, if they were doing the things I asked them to do, or if Emily would help me more, or if I could get, this other person, a family member, a friend to help me, or if I just had this, or if other people would do this for me, then I would be able to put out more content. Then I would be able to hit my goals. Then I would be able to see the results that I want to see. And I had to get to the point where I said, okay, I can't expect other people to do things that they seem to not be willing to do. And if I don't have the money to pay people, then I can't get mad that those things aren't getting done. So what do? Instead of getting frustrated and discouraged that I haven't hit 100 local supporters yet, or getting frustrated that I haven't hit 1,000 YouTube subscribers yet, or whatever it is, instead it's okay. Let's do the things that are working. How can I make time for those things to do them more consistently and regularly and at a higher level? And then from there, take it to say, let's start to implement that. And what are kind of the hinge habits? What are the things that really make the difference in me being able to accomplish that or not? For me, it was waking up early. The other thing is just putting in extra work. or being more focused and diligent with your time? How can you control your time before you go to bed? Are you cutting yourself off from eating so you're not snacking right before you go to bed, or you're not staring at a bright screen 5 inches from your face while you're laying in bed before you fall asleep? Are you making sure that your diet is generally clean so you have energy, you're not tired all day every day and lethargic? Are you spending time with good people who are helping you? There's so many different categories that kind of fall into this, but I just want you to kind of take stock for whatever it is that you want to complain about in your life. This is kind of the catch-all one. Whatever it is that you want to complain about, whatever you feel like is not working or not going well, your biggest place of frustration or discomfort or discontent, this is something to pray about and think, okay, what can I do to change it? There's always something. There's legitimately always something. Your boss is annoying. Maybe it's time to start looking for a new job or try to switch to a different department or team within the company. Your spouse is overspending. Well, maybe it's time to cancel your credit card and just go to strictly cash and debit card financial management system. Your friends or coworkers or family members keep bringing junk food and things into the house that you don't want to eat. Well, then fill your house with healthy foods that you do want to eat. Do your own grocery shopping. Go get your own healthy snacks that you can replace those with, and you have to pray and work to develop the discipline to not eat the things that you shouldn't eat. Maybe it's starting to implement weighing yourself every day so it's more top of mind, the way that you want to look or how you want to live or how healthy you want to be. All these things, whatever your issue is, there's always going to be something that you can control. And so I encourage you to pray with that. Whatever your biggest area of discontent is, find that area that you can control and implement something that will actually start to change that. And it'll radically change your life. You'll see your stress levels, your anxiety levels crash to levels you've never seen before. And you'll start to live life much more fully, much more happily, with more passion, more purpose, and more drive. If you'd like help with figuring out what those things are in your life, or trying to find those areas of discontent, or figuring out ways that you can control them and improve those areas of your life, I'd love to talk with you sometimes. Feel free to shoot me a message. Join us on Locals at seekingexcellence.locals.com, or you can message me. You can follow me on LinkedIn and message me there. You can also message me on Instagram. God bless you. Thanks for tuning in today. Again, if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and stick with us for more Seeking Excellence content throughout this year so that you can make this year the best year of your life. All right, it is time for you to go out there and be your best. God bless you.